Unless specifically indicated otherwise, the content expressed are my views only and not necessarily those of Life Pro Asset Management, LLC. The content presented is in no way an investment advice, solicitation, or an offer to sell securities or investment advisory services. The material is provided for general information and educational purposes based upon publicly available information from sources believed to be reliable. I cannot assure the accuracy or completeness of these materials. As such, the information in these materials may change at any time without notice. Reference to these discussions about IULs and annuities or fixed insurance products. Investments on fixed insurance products are different from investments in the stock market. Any guarantees provided by a fixed insurance product cannot be assumed to be guaranteed for any other investment.
Welcome to the Rock My Finances show on K4HD Radio and Talk4 TV, where we put the fun in finance. Join Powerhouse Jennifer Joseph, CDFA, CMC, and Private Wealth Advisor, as she collaborates with you to create clarity, control, and confidence with your money, your way. It's not about the zeros, so what is it all about? Let's find out. Now here's your host and weekly friend, Jennifer Joseph.
We are here once again. Thank you all for being here. I am so excited today. We have another fabulous show. I'm getting a hang of this swing of this podcast show, radio, live thing. It's so much fun. I love, love, love it. And I love being able to interview amazing people. It is about so much more than just myself or yourself or your friends and family, my friends and family. It literally is about anyone that comes into our world. I do believe that we attract what we are putting out. So if I am putting out fun, if I'm putting out excitement, I'm going to attract a fun and exciting person, maybe at a party or at some type of an event. And then if I'm putting out smart and intelligent and more mindset type of stuff, that's who you're going to attract as well. And so I think that everyone comes into our world for a reason. As that poem says, you know, for a minute or a season for a reason. And so when I meet people and they say, oh, I can't believe I just was talking about this and here you are. I'm like, I know, I attracted you, you attracted me. I really, truly believe that. And so when we are in a stressful mode or in a worry mode, what are we going to attract? You got it. We are going to attract more stress and worry, which means we are going to attract events that bring us more stress and worry. Have you ever been looking for something, maybe keys or something really important, and you cannot find it at all? And then you start to let that go and go look for something else or do something else, come back, and they're there. They're literally right there. You looked there 3 or 4 times and they're sitting right there. And this just proves to us what we believe is true will be true for us. Even though those keys have been sitting right there the whole time, if I know that my keys are lost, I'm not going to be able to find them. And that creates stress, right? So we are going to be talking about stress and anxiety today. Everyone has that person in our life that brings us stress and anxiety, I bet. Maybe it is the holiday season. Maybe it is work. Maybe it is teenagers at home. I know that was pretty stressful for me. It could be a relationship that we're having, work, wanting to change, getting older, illnesses. It could be anything, just the world and where we've been, coming across something that we don't believe in. And like maybe one of our really good friends, I know we've been pulled apart lately the last few years with things like that. Someone that you love dearly, but believes something completely opposite than you believe. That creates internal stress within us. There's so many things that can create. If you know my story, I ended up having PTSD after my loss of my children, my tragedy that I suffered. So I did experience panic attacks. I did experience just an incredible amount of stress and anxiety and overwhelm. And that did come up again this year in January when I fell down. I haven't told you that story yet, so you're going to have to stay tuned for that one. But I did get my PTSD back again. And so I had to go back through my coping mechanisms, all of my tools that I have used. And I can tell you that I would have never gotten through my tragedy if I did not go to therapy. And back in the 90s, that is what we did. I didn't know of any life coaching or coaching at that time. And I went straight to the therapist, saved my life. I actually was with her for, I want to say off and on for 10 years. And I love therapy. I love it to diagnose how or maybe why you're feeling what you're feeling, where it came from. And I love coaching to take you to the next level of, okay, now that that's happened and this is what you're feeling, how are you going to put this in your day-to-day life? How are you going to survive this? But not only survive it, but I want to thrive it, right? I want to make whatever's happened to me in the past, I want to make amazing thing happen from that going forward. So now I know that when I get into a certain circumstance, I can experience more PTSD or, like panic attacks and just not taking care of myself. So what does that tell me when that happens? It's like, okay, I'm not putting myself first. And guess what? I have got this. I can conquer my fear. I've done it before and I'll do it again. So when this happens, I know that it's just a body reaction to my stress and I know that I can do it. Now, I can tell you there's no way that I could have done that alone. There is no way that I could have learned how to do this and have the tools and the support and just the other sounding board and as much smarter people than myself. So today, this brings me to our guest. I am so, so, so excited. So she actually puts so much together. And so being a therapist, a coach, just a worldly, intelligent woman with the best heart you've ever seen or felt, you are going to love her. So today I am going to be bringing on Miss Michael Anne Conley. Michael Anne.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi. I just love her so much. You're so great, Michael Anne. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast. I'm looking forward to diving in and hearing your story. And I know that you have some information for us at the end. So y'all stay tuned until the end because she's going to give you some great information at the end. And I want to just tell everyone a little bit about you. I went on your website, Habits into Health. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. You have been a busy woman. So, right now you're giggling because you're like, yeah, you're
It's
done
why
right.
I have gray hair.
I love gray hair. I love gray hair. We are vintage.
I've lived long enough.
You've lived long enough to have gray hair. I love it. So I'm looking at everything on here. You've been a health educator, a family marriage counselor, therapist, a holistic health educator. I know that you've coached me personally. You have done so much. So tell me, how did you get started with this craziness?
I was born.
I love it. Tell me
No,
about that. I talk
literally.
about my childhood, and I do not recall you talking about your childhood. So tell
Well,
me about your
4 months after I was born, well, the first 4 months, my mother wasn't able to breastfeed and didn't know it. So I was really hungry. Apparently, I don't have a memory up here of that, but the bodily memory. And then 4 months in, just about the time she would have discovered that she was pregnant with her second of 7 children,
oh my gosh.
we discovered that I was born with what's called hip dysplasia. My left leg was not connected bone to bone to my body. And it's actually one of the most common congenital birth defects still. Back then, they didn't know what to do about it, but my mother happened to go to a pediatrician. She knew something was up, something's different. She was a nurse, so she knew enough. And he had just so happened to have read an article about a new way to test whether a baby has this condition. And now in hospitals all over the world, this is a test that they do to know immediately whether the leg is, my leg was connected visually, tissue, blood vessels, and all of that, but the hip bone in the leg didn't fit in the socket. And I was the treatment at the time was a body cast. So for
Ooh.
6 months of my first year of life, I lived in a body cast. And I never saw a picture of it until I was in my 30s. But everything, sort of like what kind of things happen, maybe early in life or other times in life that we would call, or what I would call, formative. These were events that we didn't ask for, they happened, and they moved our direction. And this was my first formative event because I heard things, common things that parents will say, like, what do you have to complain about? You're lucky you can walk.
Wow.
Yeah. And, meant well, but also coming out of stress. My mom was exhausted. I was the first of 7, and she was exhausted. I was 3.5 years old when she gave birth to her 4th child. It was ding, 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 ding.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and the truth is, my truth, what I know now is that I needed more of her, and she didn't have that to give. She was worn out.
Yeah.
And back then, we're talking the 50s. I grew up in the 50s. There were no therapists for
Oh
ordinary
gosh.
everyday people.
Yeah.
No, everybody's just doing the very best they can with the resources they have. So she was doing the best that she could. And given that, I had a really stable, uh, fairly good upbringing with a certain level of support. But there were certain things that got said, and they are remembered. What do you have to complain about? You're lucky you can walk. Well, the second part, that's really true. I can walk today because I lived for 6 months in that body cast. But let's not pretend that living in a body cast for 6 months of your infancy doesn't have an impact. It has an impact.
For sure, for sure. And I know, like, very, very little, but I have a psychology degree years ago, right? The first thing that
Hmm.
comes to my mind is attachment styles. Holy crap. You needed to be touched. You needed to be
Yep.
stroked. You needed to be loved. You needed to be held. You
Yep.
didn't get that. And that is going to make a huge difference.
It makes a very big difference. Now, there were compensations which were more intellectual. There was a lot of engagement. So when I first encountered, like, fast forward just briefly, I had the opportunity back in 1983 to hear a speaker who was, I didn't realize it at the time, was one of the foremost pioneers of what's called somatic psychotherapy, body-centered psychotherapy. And it was like, oh, I had to know more. And I didn't realize at the time, I came to appreciate, I'll say it differently than you say it, but you'll recognize it. There are no coincidences. There are no coincidences. And so today I'm now, like, it's almost 40 years. I have been applying not just holistic health principles, but body-centered principles. And it comes out of my realization of that early experience. And
Mm,
everything I've learned since. One of the threads that led me to where I am today. So when I say I was born, it's like, yeah, we can each say that. But then it's also, okay, what happened? What was, how did I, well, the way I say it to my clients is, because you're here, that means you survived your childhood.
yeah.
So, old school psychology, people go to a therapist. Why am I this way? How did I get this way? Now, we're 100 years into psychotherapy, and almost everybody now knows why I am this way, and everybody has their story. The bottom line story is, you survived your childhood. You found a way to live into adulthood. And
Yes.
the main problem we have is, we survive our childhoods, but we learn patterns to survive those
Mm,
childhoods. And some of those patterns don't help us thrive in adulthood.
mm. I love that. You're absolutely right. And
Yeah.
like you said, survived childhood. I mean, you know my story. I know I've known Michael Anne for years, and I feel like my dad was so loving when I
Mhm,
was little. He
mhm.
was that one that picks you up and hugs you, and I'm on his shoulders, and I had a
Yeah.
really good attachment during as a small child. My
Mhm,
mom wasn't the baby person, but she was always happy and positive. She still is today. She
mhm.
just had her 90th birthday.
Wow.
And so I had those 2, even though when I got older, I did realize it was a total alcoholic home and dysfunctional,
Mhm,
especially when I was in middle school and high school. But those few years when I was a baby, I was attended to very well. And I believe my girlfriend and I, my bestie, who I hope to get on the show one day, we were just talking, how the hell did we survive all of that and come out decent people? Like, I don't know how we
Mhm.
did that. And I
Yep.
believe it's really because we had that basic foundation in the few years of pure love and positive.
Mhm.
Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yes, and I was gonna say, my dad, cut out a board and put it in the crib so that I didn't wasn't stuck lying in bed, but could be up. My mother was a reader, a talker. There was a lot of intellectual stimulation, so it wasn't like I was completely abandoned. It's
Right.
just
Well,
that there.
and look
Yeah,
at you now, intelligent talker. You can talk about, like, it totally lends to our life, right? It totally
yeah.
lends to who you are.
Exactly, exactly. And the other thing I wanna mention too, because, well, it in your story, your children did not survive their childhoods.
They did not.
They did not. And there's no way tragedy is the only word that can be said
Yeah,
about that, you know?
yeah.
And and, and in my life, my second formative event was my brother, the brother who followed me. Who my mother was pregnant with him when I was
Mhm.
in that body cast, and he lived for just a month past his 15th year. He died suddenly of an enlarged heart at the age of 15. How what's that about? What's that about? And there's no other word for it other than tragedy. It
Yeah.
just plummeted my family into we were a stable family, but it just really redirected everything. And so I say that while the birth experience really informed my interest in somatic psychotherapy, the death of my brother set in motion every single profession I have ever been in.
Wow.
So when I was choosing, it was in some way tied to trying to sort out why did that happen? What was going on then? How can I help my mother alleviate her depression? How can I alleviate my own? How can I come to understand this strange thing that happened? And even my interest in holistic and integrative health was sourced in a belief that I had that doctors had killed my brother based on neglect. I have no proof of that,
Wow.
but it was like, what didn't they see that
So
led
you were, like,
him?
16 when your
I
brother
was
died?
I was 16. Yeah.
So you were 16 and you formed that idea.
Right. Oh, absolutely. Right from
Yeah.
the get-go, my interest in holistic health and in alternative, what we called alternative medicine at the time, was
Mhm.
sourced in what is it that led them to diagnose him with bronchitis when he was in heart failure? What was wrong with the medical system?
Wow. Wow, it's interesting how things shape us. Well, I'm sorry for the
Mhm.
loss of your brother. I don't think I knew that as well. So I'm getting to know you very well, Miss Michael Anne. I love that. I love it.
Yeah. Yep.
So now in these days, well, how long did you practice as what was it, a psychotherapist? Is that what you did?
I'm still a psychotherapist. I became
Okay.
well, I don't have a degree in psychology, and I tell my clients why that's a good thing. Because I came back to school. I loved school, the old intellect. Yeah. I
Yes.
loved school. I was a journalist in my first profession. And my interest in journalism came at the time of the Vietnam War and Watergate when everybody wanted to be Woodward and Bernstein. And I
Yeah.
happened to be, one of those people. But my interest waned because we didn't have the internet. I needed to be self-published when I was 25, but you had
Wow.
to have a publisher agree to publish your work, and I had too many rejections of good stories that I was doing for the newspaper. And so I began to think about other options, and I became interested in holistic health from some health issues that I was dealing with. So one thing leads to another,
Yeah.
and I ended up getting a degree. I have a long name, a short person, long name. My degree title is long too. It's clinical holistic, health, education. But coincidence again, it just so happened that I got interested in family dynamics in psychology. And at the time, I could qualify for the license for marriage and family therapy as long as I did some additional coursework. And that door
Okay.
closed. That door closed very shortly after I graduated. So it was like, ta-da! I could become a holistically oriented psychotherapist. What's not to like?
Holistically oriented psychotherapist. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. I could take all of my interest in integrative health, what we now call integrative health, all of my interest in somatic psychology, and wrap it into being a qualified licensed therapist in the state of California.
Oh, that's
There we
awesome.
go. I mean, I had
I
nothing to
love
do
it.
with this. Well, I say I have nothing to do with this, but it's kind of like the no coincidences thing. At every juncture, I listened to the tap on the shoulder that said, "Hey, you go over there. Oh,
Try
nope,
that.
now
Yep.
now you go there. Now try this." And I guess I had the gift of listening to that, and here I am today.
That's a huge gift, Michael Ann. That's an absolutely huge gift
Yeah.
because we go so much, especially in the Bay Area in California. I feel like there was always a lot of pressure.
Mhm.
There was always a lot of busy hustle to do, go, 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 go. And me personally, I have to slow down in order to listen to that next because it's more of a feeling. I'm
Yes.
type A, Virgo, never late, always perfect, always right. No, 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 no. Right? She's
Well,
laughing at me.
I'm the other kind of Virgo.
Yeah, yeah. So I lived with a Pisces for a long time, and so I calmed my Virgo down a bit, and I call myself type A in recovery, but I'm still totally type A. And I have to do that in order to get that, like you said, the tap on the shoulder.
Yeah.
Mine comes from inside. It comes from a feeling. It comes
Mhm.
from a joyous feeling, almost like opening a present. Like, oh, if we go over there, what will that bring? More of like an excitement. And then I'm like, oh, okay, that's not coming from my shoulda, woulda, coulda, type A, you're a failure, do this, or whatever,
Mhm.
brain, do this. It's coming from hopefully divine intervention of this is where you should be going next. This is more of your path. Sounds like you've been listening to that for a long time. So I totally, totally love that. That's great.
Yeah. Well, and I have a
So,
little different perspective about that in the sense of where is it coming from? That
okay.
we live in a world that focuses on the power of our brain and specifically the power of the prefrontal cortex. Unfortunately, our relationship to that part of us is we let it be a dictator rather than a friend. So, so we have a word in English. I'll use the two words in English, and they're words that the mind made up: unconscious and subconscious. Those to me are words for the body. It's happening beneath what the brain can understand. And sometimes we even call it intuition or whatever. Connection to the body really is soul work for me. It is connected to the divine. And I just try to bring that together in really appreciating that when we think something, maybe it's an interpretation, and depending on how we survived our childhood, that can have an influence on what we think.
Mm, I like that. I never thought of the subconscious and unconscious, our intuition. I literally thought the subconscious and unconscious were previous experiences that we've had that I've kind of filed away in my old filing drawer.
Yes, filed away, but kind of filed away beneath conscious awareness.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
filed away for sure. Yep, yep,
Filed away. Okay, that's cool. And
yep.
then my body, because I know you mentioned this on your website as well, is our body can give us clues to all of this, right? Yeah,
Right.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. So
It's
let's talk anxiety, Michael Ann. No one ever has anxiety or stress or overwhelm. It's not even a daily life problem or issue. And so we're going to pretend that we
We're
know what
gonna
you're talking about.
pretend well, okay, so we're gonna pretend that we each know something about this and have learned from the divine or from some part of ourselves about this, which doesn't necessarily mean that we've mastered it 100%, right? Because there's no perfection.
So I have to just bring up a point here because this is absolutely powerful what you're doing right now because I am a financial advisor, right? So I help people with their money. Is there anything more important, right? So I have their futures in my hand. That is a little bit of a stressful job,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Being a mother, a single mother was a stressful job. I'm a caregiver
Hmm.
to my mom, was my parents. Now it's just my mom. That
Right.
is a stressful job. I grew up and in an alcoholic home. That was a stressful job. My kids passed away when I was 29. I have lived the most stressful life, I swear. Now, chicken or the egg, right? So I jumped into this career, but I'm used to this stress. I'm used to this chaos. I'm used to all of this. I do not see myself as stressed. And I have this amazing Dr. Tracy, my healer, my guru, my
Hmm.
chiropractor, my whatever we call her. And so she like pulls me up and muscle tests me and stuff. And she's like, "Oh, so you were completely stressed, like at 10:45 a.m. And I'm like, "Really? I had no idea I was stressed." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I was on the phone with a client. I don't even realize the amount of stress that my body's going through and that I'm putting my body through." That scared me. I was like, "Wow, we are getting so used to stress, we don't even realize it's stress."
Well, that's part of the problem is that we become acclimated to it. And then, just like you can become acclimated to high blood sugar, by if you eat too much candy, your body begins to think, oh, this is normal. And the same thing happens with stress. So there's a great quote that I learned from a psychologist at Columbia University. And I asked her if I could have her permission to quote her. Her name was Lee Neffelkamp. And her quote was, "Under stress, we all regress. Under
Mhm.
stress, we
Oh,
all regress." So whatever your capacity is, that may be your capacity. Maybe, you're saying, Jennifer, oh, I have a capacity to handle a lot of stress. And so, but still, there is going to be a kind of an energy that happens under enormous stress that will lead you to need to regroup in some way. So
but
a
do I
lot
really have the capacity for stress, or am I just fooling myself?
Well, I would say each of us we each have, there's genetic influences to capacity,
Okay.
and there's, now the word epigenetic, which actually kind of you take the epigenetics is the social psychology and environmental influences that navigate. But you are an exemplar of a person who turns tragedy into, power, empowerment, and positivity. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
I know you said a lot of big words right there, but the gist of what I got is I got it good from my genetic because my dad owned business, my parents owned
Yep.
businesses
That
all the
er
time.
Yep,
We lived in stress, right? So
right.
I grew up with that and it didn't bother me
You grew up with
because I
love.
learned,
You knew you were
grew up with
loved,
love. Yep,
right?
totally. I knew I was the apple
Yep.
of everyone's eye. And society and learning the financial industry, learning how to handle things so that I could handle stress. So maybe I am doing pretty good with stress, but go ahead.
Well, you can also consider in terms of how you survived your childhood was, to because there was love. When we're little kids, we don't necessarily see the alcoholism when it's happening, especially if the alcoholism is happening in the quiet maintenance level alcoholism or happy alcoholism style, right? Because there's that. There's other situations which are not so happy and are very traumatizing for kids. But it doesn't mean that you weren't in some way watchful. All children are watchful. And we know, and as a kid, I wanted to solve my mother's depression. I had no power over that. I was just a kid. I was a teenager, a little older, but I could see. I didn't have language for it. She was in major depression for 5 years after my brother died. And then
Sure.
she picked herself up and created a life that was beyond that tragedy, just like you did.
Mhm.
And this is an important thing that is we may have sturdy bones that makes it more possible for us to have that can-do sense of ourselves,
Mhm.
or we borrow it from others. And that's what you were talking about, that you needed therapy. You couldn't have done it on your own. And I would say this is one of the gifts that COVID has given us. COVID is an amplifier. Whatever's going on, it just raises the stakes on everything. So it increases the stress level. And what has happened as a consequence of that, at least here in the United States, is more and more people have realized that they could benefit from therapy. There's not as much stigma about going to therapy or even seeking coaching or going and getting help. My definition of a good American, this is in jokes, a good American says, I got a problem. I can figure this out by myself, and I'm not going to tell anybody about it. I'm going to manage it by myself. And then the stress levels rise. And so then the stress becomes a gift that then can send you to realizing you need to get some help. And sometimes, just being accompanied by someone actually, it's pretty important to be accompanied by someone who isn't a family member, isn't a friend. We want our families to be supportive, but there are some things we maybe don't want our families to know. My mother went to her death not knowing certain things about me. That was good. That's just some things you don't say because it's going to stress them out too much, right? And they don't need to know.
Exactly.
But we
Exactly.
also,
And your family also knows you from where you left off with them.
yes, and they don't always see what's changed in you.
Right.
Right?
They know
They
you
don't
as
always-
that relationship in that role. And I've done a crap ton of work since then. I'm a different person. I see things differently. And then I come back and then
Yep.
they don't see you as this person. So they're not the best person to help with things like that.
Exactly. We want our friends to be cheerleaders. We want our friends to say, hey, you, atta girl, atta boy, you're doing great. We don't necessarily want our friends, our closest friends, we can give them permission to say, you need to look at this. But generally speaking, we don't want to burden our friends with what we're carrying. And so that's where hiring help works. I had a client recently say to me, and this was a guy, and guys are even better Americans than women are. I'm going to do all by myself, and I'm going to hunker down and make it work. He said, "Well, I don't know how to change the oil in my car, so when I need help, I hire help. So I'm hiring you." I thought,
That's so
this
perfect.
is a very good frame of reference, because when you have a neutral observer who doesn't have what's the phrase, dog in the fight, who doesn't have an intention for you. Well, I mean, I do have an intention for all my clients, but I'm not attached to it. It's their life, and I'm here to support that, which is why, I think of myself as a therapeutic coach, because some clients, there are times that they just want some basic coaching. And then there are times that they hit a curveball, that curveball gets thrown their way, and they need something that's a little softer, a little bit more therapeutic, and a little bit more holding. And I'm able to provide that just in the way I grew myself,
I love that.
So,
I
so
love it.
let's talk about anxiety, because anxiety, in essence, is future oriented in an unhealthy way. Anxiety is almost always about what's going to happen next, and there's dread attached to it. It's also an experience of a frequency. I'll do this with my hand, it's frequency, right? It's the brain, it goes the bouncy ball. Just follow the bouncy ball, and the bouncy ball goes to a squirrel. What did I forget to do? It's bouncing around, and this is in the nature of the brain. So in our culture, we make a very big mistake. We individualize problems. We pathologize ourselves individually. And so I have clients saying, why am I doing this? Or what's wrong with me? Or what am I
Right.
doing wrong? That frame of reference. And they don't realize that this is in the nature of how the human brain works. It's there. There's a very important tool in the prefrontal cortex. We would call it a stop sign. It's like that guard at the schoolyard, slow,
Yep.
stop, go. And the stop sign is the one of the part of us that's on alert for danger. And it's saying, don't go there. No, don't do this. And it's on guard. And if that part of us is too much on guard, we are saying no to ourselves. We're creating our own anxiety and stress. And then we think we're the only ones that are doing it, instead of
Mm.
realizing that this is a part of the human condition.
And if you've experienced a lot of violence or stress or bad experiences in your life, that guard's going to be up more for you than it would be another person, right?
Exactly, exactly. Research has shown that that folks who experience more fear in their life tend to have amygdalas, part of the brain, not in the prefrontal cortex, but in the limbic system, that is larger than normal, or what would be called normal. That there's a response in the brain that has a more heightened response to fear that is then generated. And if you've grown up with love, that's an antidote. If you've given yourself love in adulthood, that's an antidote. So it's really important who we spend our time with, the communities that we're in. Isolation is not helpful because you're inside your own bouncing ball, going, "What's wrong with me?" or "What am I doing wrong?"
Wow, that's so important. Everything that you just said. I can't wait to share this with so many people. So I can, I don't want to say fix this, but almost fix this, right? So it's never too late. That's my statement. It's never too late. If we give ourselves
Mm,
love, we can always calm
yep.
that fear down, calm the anxiety down, heal ourselves almost. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So let's talk about, well, fixing. I would say first, there is no cure. The only cure in
Okay.
human life comes at death, right?
Okay.
There's no perfection. The American model is that we're going for perfection, a more perfect union, right? So let's use the word perfecting, and that
Ooh.
it takes attention, it takes practice, and it really takes support. Trying to do this on your own. I couldn't have done it on my own. I saw a guy give a speech and went, "Wow, he's onto something. I got to find out more about this." Here I am almost 40 years later. He's left the planet, and I am so fortunate that I got to learn from him and from my therapist, who was one of his proteges. Just absolutely fortunate. So the idea is, what can we do when we're under stress? What actually can we do? And I'd like to suggest something. It's such a great thing that any of us can do, and we poo-poo it. But we don't need any special tools. We don't need to go out and buy something in order
You're
to
going to tell me to
do this.
meditate, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I w- I'm not. Actually, I believe meditation is a misused word, but that's a whole other show.
I
That's a whole
agree.
other
That's
show.
another show. Ooh,
It's
we
a whole
will
other
do a
show.
show on meditation. That's
Let's
a great
do
idea.
what I suggest. It really starts with breathing.
Oh,
So
yes.
when I do a Monday night call. I've been doing this since the pandemic started, um, and I need to rename it because we're not quite. It's been called cabin fever stress relief because that's where we were, all locked in our cabins. Haven't found a brilliant new name yet, so I'm just waiting for the universe to tap me on the shoulder and say, "Okay, here's a new name." And but it's basically a contemplative practice that is body centered. And very often, very simply, this is something every single one of us can do, and it has to do with the breath. And we minimize the importance of breathing. Oh yeah, another breathing exercise. Yeah. And there's so many different ways to breathe, right? There are different people that teach different kinds of breathing. Could I share a little bit of what I know about this? Do we have time?
Please, please, please. Yes.
Okay. And
We have
everybody,
about 10 more minutes.
okay, I'll do this quick, even though breathing is about slow. And I
I know,
invite,
right?
you
Okay.
know,
Yep. And then we'll do a commercial, then
you
we'll come back and I want you to share some more goodies on how we can get a hold of you and your classes and all that good stuff.
okay, good. So if you'll do this along with me, Jennifer, I'll give you a little
Absolutely.
preview. I discovered this because I realized, we were in workshops together, right?
Yep.
We were in groups where we were the students, we were in the seats learning. And all, a lot of us were learners, lifelong learners. We go to workshops, and I noticed in workshops, the leaders would often say, "Take a deep breath." And I would watch what happened in the room. And here's what I saw. I saw people straining to take a deep breath. And I realized that they didn't know what a deep breath was, that they were straining to perfect a deep breath. And it meant this deep inhale, but they were struggling. I could see the shoulders were tight. I could see the strain in their back. And I realized that the way to know a deep breath is to invite it in. And so just notice the rhythm of your breath. There's always going to be a rhythm in the breath. And it's got 2 long ropes and 2 short turns, right? Like a figure 8. Like we're doing this here. I'll bring my hands up so you can see it. Figure 8. So we've got the inhale, and then there's a turn to the exhale, and then the exhale and a turn to the inhale. So the next time you come to an exhale, empty your lungs. Long, slow, and deep blow out. I'll shorten mine because I got to talk. And when you blow out, just empty your lungs. It tightens, tightening in the lungs. You'll feel a tightness in the diaphragm, even into the belly. When you do that, and then just wait. The next thing that's going to happen will be a natural, deep breath without strain. Can you feel that?
Yes.
And that's a deep breath for you. Each of us has the capacity for deep breath. So and I don't invite people to take a deep breath. I invite them to give a deep breath. Start with the exhale, and it sets the tone for the rest of the cycle.
Oh, that's good. I've never heard that before.
Well, I call it give a breath, receive a breath, and it has other components to it.
Oh my God, I
When
love it.
we
Okay,
give a breath,
we're going to practice this for
we're gonna
our
practice
quick
this
commercial
during
Yep.
our break. Okay,
So,
great. And then
yep.
we'll come back
Juan's
and I'll
going to
say
give
more.
us a commercial. We'll come back, and then I want you to finish it up. Oh my God, I'm
Okay.
so excited. Okay, Juan, let them have it, my dear. Y'all listen to this and do your deep breath with the 8 while you're listening to the commercial.
Wait, the show isn't over yet. There's more fun and finances ahead. Jennifer will be right back as we have a special bonus offer for you right here on Rock My Finances, broadcasting live on K4HD Radio and Talk4 TV.
Hey y'all, it's Jennifer Jost. Are you ready to transform your relationship with money? Rock My Finances Club is your weekly mastermind for wealth empowerment. Join me live for your personal weekly group video sessions and access your personal portal with the video library at any time, including your success system and way more bonuses. Go to rockmf.com for your financial empowerment. Make yourself a priority today. Schedule a chat with me at rockmf.com and achieve your feminine financial freedom finally. Oh, and don't forget to ask me how to save 50%. See you at our weekly mastermind.
Okay, Rock My Finances on K4HD and Talk4 TV is back. Once again, let's put the fun in finance with your host and weekly friend, Jennifer Jost.
Okay, I love that rock song. It cracks me up. Okay, so I was breathing. I love what you just said because it's about the out first, then it's natural to bring it in.
Natural.
Okay.
And everybody gets to experience what a deep breath is for them. So if your exhale, in the beginning, maybe your exhale might be shallow, but you'll still feel the experience of receiving a breath. So in giving a breath, this is biological. And, we go back to your high school biology class, or some of you who are in college biology. When we exhale, we are actually expiring a mix of gases, a large proportion of which is carbon dioxide that is poison to our bodies. It's the garbage. We're taking out the trash. And we do it many, many times in a day. When we exhale deeply, we are getting deep down into the lungs and exhaling more of that carbon dioxide, creating space. And guess what? Plants, this is not an environmental message, but you could take it that way. Plants thrive on carbon dioxide. So they're going, when we breathe deeply, every plant in your house, in your yard, in the world is going, oh, thank you, Jennifer. Oh, that was just wonderful. That was dessert. I just loved it. And the plants are very generous because what they expire is oxygen. So when we feed the plants, you don't just feed the plants by pouring water on them. You feed the plants by breathing and exhaling out toward them. And then they send oxygen back, because when we inhale, there's a significant amount of the air that we breathe that is oxygen, that is food for our cells, right?
So if we're not
Giving up,
taking that deep breath, then we're carrying the crap and we're not letting enough good stuff in.
right? So we want to give a deep breath and receive a deep breath.
Okay.
And allow, and then to slow it down, we allow the turn, allow that turn. There's a thing about box breathing, which I thought, well, okay, people who are technocrats made up that idea. Breathing is the figure eight. The body is not in squares and lines. The body
Right.
is in curves, right? So it's a gentle way of breathing. Give a breath, receive a breath. And then you can make it even more powerful when you exhale, to let the air shape your lips. And for anybody who's been around babies knows that when the baby is little, you wet your lips and you go to the baby's belly and you blow.
Mhm.
So when you exhale and let the air shape your lips instead of pursing the lips, you are also softening the jaw. Whether you can do it on both of it.
I totally have to do that because I clench my jaws at night. I love this.
And when you do this, it's an antidote. It's really hard to do this and hold your jaw tight.
It
And
is.
when you do this, you are relieving anxiety. And you don't have, like I said, you don't have to buy anything. It's not like when you go to meditation, maybe you have a little seat to sit in, you have to buy that seat. Or you go to yoga and you bring your yoga mat and all that. All of those things are great and wonderful. But this is something that is your birthright. Every single one of us has this birthright. Every single one of us can begin to give a breath and feed the plants, and receive a breath in and feed ourselves. Now, there's another little bit about this, Jennifer, that most people don't remember from their biology class, which is the brain automatically siphons off about 30% of whatever you feed it. There are two primary ways that we feed the brain: through glucose and the food that we eat, and through the breath. So when you exhale deeply and bring in a deep inhale, you are feeding your brain and helping it soothe itself. And I can't tell you how many of my clients, I'll do this exercise with them, and I have variations of other exercises. But when I do this exercise, I then invite them to give me feedback. How was that? What did you experience in yourself? And almost to a person, they use words like, I feel calmer.
Yeah,
I'm
me
not
too.
thinking
Right
so
now.
much. I'm not so busy.
Yeah.
It's
I
our
feel
birthright.
great. You know what, Michael Ann? You're gonna laugh. Maybe not because you're amazing, but I feel younger.
Ooh, yes,
I feel
yes,
younger. I feel
yes.
like my brain is not tired right now.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, that's great. So you have lots of things that I know you do. We only have 1 minute. So I know you guys can all check her out at habitsintohealth.com. She has lots of fun stuff on there. She has some free gifts for you on there, videos. You can, yep, there we go. Thank you. And then
Yep.
you can get in touch with Michael Ann. There's a place, she's a speaker as well. She can come speak at your event or on your Zoom and speak to your group or your family or whatever. So definitely please reach out to her. You are amazing, Michael. And I will definitely have you on again. I think what we'll do is we'll do a group meditation podcast, and we'll have a bunch of us on and give us little tips like this, because
Yeah,
I
and
didn't know this.
I'll lead you all. I'll lead everybody in how to use the breath and the body to quiet the mind. It's so much more effective than meditating.
I have zero anxiety, my love. You are amazing. I
Thank you.
love you. You're so great. Thank you so much. And so when you're all doing your money, since this is a Rock My Finances, when you're opening your computer for your money date, do your breath. Give your out. What's it? Give and receive. So
Give a breath, receive a breath. Give a
give your
breath,
breath,
receive a
receive your
breath.
breath.
Yeah.
And then open your computer, and then you can say, I rock my finances. Thanks, y'all. Make sure to tune in again next week. Love you, Michael Ann. Woo!
Bye-bye. Thank you, Jennifer.
We appreciate you joining us today, and don't forget to subscribe to the Rock My Finances YouTube channel for more engagement and bonus content. Tell me, what is your money story? Let's find out with Jennifer, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific, every Thursday right here on K4HD Radio and Talk4 TV. It's not about the zeros, it's about the F word, feelings. Feelings Jennifer can't wait to explore with you next week. Until then, let's all say, I rock my finances.